Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. VET S.O.S is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Parade Deck community. Today, we're sitting down with Ashley Sard, who currently serves as the Community Partnership Specialist with Empath Health. Looking forward to learning more about the organization she works for and the work that they're doing for our community. Another day of recording there, Keith. How you doing?
Another day, another buck 50. I'm doing good, actually. How you doing, Shawn?
Not too bad. Murphy's showing up as usual,
As
having some difficulties
always.
here and there. But we'll get through it. All right, let's jump right into this. We got Ashley, who's a proud Air Force veteran with 15 years of service as a medic. She comes from a military family with her father and younger brother both serving in the Army. During her time in the Air Force, she was privileged to care for service members and their families, an experience that deepened her commitment to the well-being of those who serve. Today, she serves as a community partnership specialist with Empath Health, where she supports veterans through outreach, education, and advocacy. Her passion is to bridge the gap between our communities and the needs of those who served, ensuring that no veteran is forgotten or underserved. How you doing today, Ashley?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. It's been an interesting journey. Definitely been an interesting day, but we're still making it happen. So, well, let's kick this
All our
off with.
listeners are like, what are you talking about? They don't see what's going on behind the scenes.
That's not always a bad thing, right? They just see that it's
Right.
productive and it's great. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for people to make comments, like it's 7 o'clock at night. What are you talking about morning time for? And
What?
Well, they should just assume that everybody's kind of all over the place when it comes to time zones. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah. All right, so let's start with your transition. Tell us how your transition out of the military went.
Oh boy, it was a bit crazy. I mean, I think everybody's can agree on that. I went through a medical retirement. I had some pretty significant health issues when we left. So we were in Japan, Okinawa, and then when we left there, we got stationed at MacDill in Tampa, Florida, and that's when my health kind of started deteriorating. And so they started the medical board process, which I got to tell you, if you are to any of the service members, not to say to get sick, right? But if they are kind of going through some things, the earlier you can start that med board process, the better. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to kick you out, but what it does is it gets everything together before you're out so that when you are doing your claim, it is a smooth process. That was probably the only thing that I can say was smooth, was that part. Once I transitioned out, because it was not an actual retirement, you go from having that pay to just having the disability. And I say just because it was a significant, loss in pay. So it was a tough time for us trying to figure out, my husband was still active duty and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to take a break. I've never been anybody to just sit on the sidelines or stay at home. I wanted to just keep going. But there just weren't opportunities for me right away as far as a job. And I mean, I was that kind of nerd. I had my resume on me everywhere I went because this was well before COVID. And I was, everywhere, every clinic I went, every person I saw, hey, here's my resume. And everyone made me feel like so warm and welcome. Oh yeah, we've got your back, and it just wasn't that easy. So it probably took about 9 months before I got a position on MacDill, which, they're like, gosh, you just left. But I got a position in their IT department. I kind of already, so I was a trainer. I had, when we were in the military, we wear all these hats, right? And one of them that I just kind of happened to get because I was good at it was training the providers and the nurses and the clinical teams on the electronic health records system. I just knew that thing like the back of my hand. So I got lucky, and the gentleman that had been in that position for years he was ready to move on. So he basically hand carried my resume to his boss and was like, you got to hire her. So that worked out for me. I learned a lot in IT. Kind of realized then that I wanted to kind of pursue more IT, and went and got my Security Plus, which, oh golly, I don't know how many times I had to take that test. That was painful. But it was a really, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else can agree. Like and maybe that's why people are veterans. Maybe that's why when they retire or they separate, they completely remove themselves from that area. So they don't go back to MacDill, or they don't go back to work at the clinic, because it's a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't really the warmest. It took a little while to kind of get people to where I felt comfortable saying, yeah, I'm here as, contractor. I'm still doing the same thing I was doing, with obviously less responsibilities, because I'm just here to train you guys. But wasn't really warm fuzzies for a while. So I wasn't sure if I was going to stick with it, but ended up staying with it for 4 years. And then, as we know, in the contract world, contracts went through different hands. And it got to a point where they were like, well, we're going to change record systems, and we can't guarantee that you're going to have a job. And I was like, wow, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't want to go back in the, door-to-door thing again. So I basically put an application through Indeed through a company called Insight Global. And they were, it's really cool. They had this software they created that they were trying to spread throughout the entire United States, that basically served as a 504, or for children that were on the spectrum or that had special needs disabilities. Basically, every state has their own platform. And it's like, when we go to doctor's offices, they all use their own little medical record system, and they don't talk to each other. So, for example, if you have a child that's on the spectrum and you go from Florida to Texas, you have to start the process all over again when you're going back to school. You've got to get a new IEP. So they created a platform, and they were training the state of Texas first, all the schools in Texas. And it was great until it wasn't, only because it was like, we say when we're in the military, the plane's already flying and we're trying to fix it. And that was my husband's thing anyway, because he was a hydraulics mechanic. But I like to use that because that's how I felt. Like, we're already up in the air. We shouldn't be having to, put landing gear and, all this stuff on there. But so that was kind of short-lived. Was there for a few months, and then software kind of, just wasn't ready for rollout. And so left that position, and then I got hired on at the VA, which is ultimately what I was trying to do. And I took on a position as a program support assistant with the Women Veterans Program, which at the time was, that was what, 2021, 2022. I don't think anybody, even I know here, didn't even know we had a Women Veterans Program. So it instantly became a passion for me to spread that like wildfire and let women know that we have services for them. Get it out there that women served. It's so funny, but we're considered a minority group. And then to find out that we had over 14,000 women veterans just in Hillsborough County. 14,000. That's a lot of women veterans. And they're getting younger and younger. We have, when I joined the VA, it was, in my head, it was, I hate to say it, but like our menopausal age, our older our older women, they're probably going to throw something at me for saying that, but our older population, right? But that's just not it anymore. Women are serving, and, they're in their 20s when they're, leaving the service for whatever that reason is. And so they're what we, consider childbearing age. And they're veterans now, and they're having babies, and they're like, what do I do? I don't have the military installation to help me. So there was a lot of education, a lot of outreach opportunities, and we grew significantly as a program. I think we had upwards of over 300 women veterans at one point that were on our tracker for currently pregnant or have had delivered. It's a lot of women, because we tracked them, even a year up to after they delivered. So, and then I just recently started with Empath back in May. They had an opportunity that I felt kind of called to me. So here I am today in that whole roundabout sort of explanation.
Well, you got us where we needed to be, and then that's quite the journey. I mean, you hit on so many different things there, from the job search itself, the abruptness of the medical board you weren't prepared for originally when it happened, and how you had to adapt, and those types of things, and then how, just sticking with it, you eventually found yourself in some of the positions you wanted to be in. And so it's ultimately, to me, a story of resiliency, and how you've done the things you had to do to get where you are. So definitely applaud you for sticking to it.
Thank you.
What do you think, Keith? Some of that journey sounds familiar, huh?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it all sounds so familiar. Obviously, I was like, medic, security plus, back to the VA. I'm like, resident. Like, it sounds like a typical veteran journey. We're just, we're running in 15 different directions, and figuring out what we want to be when we grow up. So yeah, no, it definitely powerful story, especially for other women or even any veteran getting out. But yeah, that medical board process, especially, I run my agency SkillBridge program, and I talk to hiring managers. I'm like, hey, you'll get applicants that are being medically separated, and it's a double-edged sword because you're doing them such a huge service to bring them on, but you're also, yeah, like we had a Marine come on, and it was, we got 3 months with him, but he literally got a call like Monday morning told from his old unit saying like, hey, you're out of the Marine Corps on Friday, go. Like, it's just like, it's crazy what happens to those folks. So my heart goes out to anybody who has to experience that whole process. So tell us a little bit about Empath Health. So you recently transitioned over to that from the VA. So what is Empath Health all about, and what should we know about them?
So I have to say, there's a lot of companies out there. There's a lot of nonprofits, right? And there's a lot of competition when it comes to hospice care. But I personally feel like Empath Health really, really speaks to veterans. They are one of the largest nonprofit health systems in the United States. And they are truly dedicated to serving those with chronic or advanced illnesses, and, unfortunately, those that are nearing the end of their life. I love their mission to provide full life care for all, regardless of age, race, gender, identity, income, background. And they provide anywhere from hospice and palliative care to HIV services, and caregiver support. And, they really are about, meeting people where they are, whether that be physically, mentally, spiritually. And I just think that they're, one of their initiatives, the We Honor Veterans program, and I'll get into that a little bit later, that really spoke to me. Just knowing that a service, obviously the service itself is it's a tough one to be in, right? When you're dealing with grief and things like that. But to be able to speak to veterans as well, I think that just really screamed out my name. I was like, oh, that's it. Count me in. And so there's a bunch of us, but there's two of us that specifically work with the veteran population. We're kind of divided into counties because we're all over the state of Florida. And so my reach is Hillsborough County, and then my counterpart, Carlos, is Pinellas. And I'll say since I started, I hit the ground running from day one with outreach events. We do education talks, resource fairs, coffee socials, you name it, from like the smallest to the biggest, just trying to get the word out about Empath Health and, the services that they offer. So
That's fantastic. So you're the entire state of Florida.
hmm
Okay. So now, do you guys have, is everybody based there in Tampa, or do you have people in the different geographical areas within the state?
they are all over the state. Yeah, I want to say we have somewhere of like 12 different physical locations. But a lot of us do work remote, and I say remote lightly because obviously if I'm doing outreach, I'm gone. But if I'm not doing outreach, then I'm at home. But everybody's everywhere. And it kind of makes sense that way. Like I'm in Hillsborough County. So if I need to reach out to that group, I'm here, and we have a lot of rural areas, and I think I bring that wealth of knowledge from the VA side, from being there for 3 years, getting to know, because we have a bunch of VA smaller clinics called CBOCs, and they're in all different areas. And a lot of those areas are rural populations that we want to provide service to, and they don't have the services out there. And we have different kind of capacities. We've got mobile units and things that we can bring to those, special populations. But I can't remember how many there are, but I mean, there's a lot. It's very spread out. And funny as it was, the young lady, her name was Trudy Beeler. She was in this position before, and she was in it for a really long time. So I really felt kind of pressured too when I came over, because they were like, no pressure. You're taking on Trudy. You're filling Trudy's shoes. And I was like, well, she had a good 6 inches on me. So I don't know if I can fill that, but I'm going to do my best. And, but I had worked with her before at the VA. They would come in and they would talk, they would do laughter yoga, which is something that we do. It sounds funny, but it's a good time. So I felt like I already knew the company, I already knew their mission, and I felt the passion from their people. So to me, it was just a no-brainer. So
Fantastic. And that you have to connect me with the person who covers Jacksonville. I'd love to connect with them and
absolutely.
See what all they have going on and they're involved with here locally. I don't know, Keith, the filling shoes, that kind of sounds like you and me, huh?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I can't fill your shoes, you behemoth. No, but I actually have a clarifying question, mostly for our listeners, because I have the ability to Google while we're sitting here, but our listeners probably, they're driving, whatever it might be, and they don't necessarily have that thing. So you said something I had never heard of before. So you mentioned that the organization does hospice and palliative care. Well, so 2 questions. One is what is palliative care for folks like me who are ignorant? And then and then kind of totally in a different direction. So, serving the veteran community, the military affiliated community, we have very unique needs, especially at end of life. So what sorts of things are you doing to tailor the services specifically to those military affiliated needs?
So the first part, the palliative care. So we have, and there's this common misconception that, if someone is terminally ill, that they need to wait until 2 months before they pass to get hospice. Realistically, when you start having any kind of, terminal illness, that's when you should start. And there's basically, the way my mind thinks of it is kind of like an inpatient, outpatient, right? Inpatient, you would be hospice. You would be at a facility where you have 24-hour support. And we have specific partners that come in that are either their veteran service organizations or they're veterans themselves as the providers. And then we have the outpatient, so to speak, where the veteran can stay in their house and we'll bring the services to them. And it's everything from if they need groceries, if they have, social worker, if they need their medication, they need a provider. So it basically it depends on the kind of service that they need, and then what their needs are, because some people just want to be left alone, but they have, or maybe their house isn't equipped for a cane or, special equipment. So it really just boils down to what the veteran's needs are, how we can accommodate without interrupting their livelihood. And then if they have family that are around, how do we incorporate the family as well? Because that's something I definitely see, not with Empath, but from other services, that the families aren't as, it's not as inclusive, and the families, obviously they're there to care for us when we're in that situation, but they're also the ones left behind to kind of figure out what's next. So I think Empath does a really good job of getting the education out. Start working on your will and, that stuff now. I know it sounds morbid, but, have it ready, just like I tell veterans, make sure that your burial stuff is situated with the National Cemetery. Because I'm telling you, having gone through personal loss within the past few years of losing people that were really close to me that didn't have a will, didn't have a power of attorney, didn't have anything but debt. We had to figure it out. So I won't tie you up on that one, but that, again, long-winded, is how I see the difference between, palliative care and like respite. And then as for the veterans, they do veteran to veteran volunteer companionship. They have personalized pinning ceremonies, PTSD informed hospice care, and then navigation of VA benefits and services. So to break those down, kind of, whenever we have volunteers come through Empath, we want them to be veterans, because obviously the three of us, right, we have our own special lingo. It doesn't matter what branch we were in, what position we held, it just is. And so they try to only get veterans to volunteer, and they will match those veterans up with veterans that, either if they want someone that's at the hospice or in their home, or someone that they can just, hey, in the middle of the night when I can't shut my brain off, I just want you to answer the phone. So they'll set them up with a veteran that meets those needs as well. But one of the special things they do are those pinning ceremonies. I don't have my pen with me. I wish I did, but I don't know if they started it necessarily for like a last final thank you, but I don't see it as morbid as that. We had a ceremony on June 12th for National Women Veterans Recognition Day. And one of the things that we did is we pinned the women. I think we had almost 80 women in attendance, and they have a pin that typically myself or another veteran would pin on them like their lapel. We have a certificate of appreciation that we read, and then we render them a salute. It gives me chills every time. And it's not just for people that are terminally ill, like, thank you for your service, but that is something that we can do. And we have had families reach out to us and say, hey, I didn't tell my mom or dad that you're coming. We want it to be a surprise. And then they'll bring family from like out of state, fly them in. And it's just this overwhelming sense of appreciation, trust, just everything, like when I get ready to pass, like, I want that for me and for my family. My kids have grown up as military brats, so they've seen kind of what mom and dad went through, but not all children or grandchildren kind of know what mom, dad, or grandma and grandpa went through. So I think it's a crucial thing that they see that. And then the grief support services are really tailored to veterans for PTSD, military sexual trauma, grief for the children. Grandma passed away, as and she was or was not a veteran, all the way down to even COVID. How do you cope with a family member that passed from COVID? They were in the hospital and you couldn't talk to them. And then because we partner with other resources like the VA, we bring those in. Empath doesn't ever say that they're the experts on everything, but what they do is they do have community networking connections. And so they bring in VA from James Haley, as well as VA services from Bay Pines, eligibilities, claims, you name it. Whatever the veteran says I need help with, we try to connect them with that service. And I will tell you just a quick story, super quick. There was a young lady, a female veteran, a Vietnam veteran, and she was in one of our facilities. She didn't really talk to anybody. She just kind of was secluded in her own little area. But one day we had one of our female veteran volunteers kind of just walk around and try to get people to talk, and somehow, some way, they just connected instantly, and started having a conversation. And they were both kind of from that Vietnam area, and they were sharing stories. It was very emotional. They were crying because it brought up, some feelings, I'm sure. But that was the first time in decades that she had spoken to anybody, even her family, and all because she felt that connection. And so one of the services, obviously, that we offered her before she passed was a pinning ceremony, and her family was surrounding her and us. And it just was, these moments matter. So I just think that, what Empath Health does and offers our veterans is probably one of the most important reasons why I joined.
That's fantastic.
Gives me chills every time.
There's a couple organizations we've talked to, and especially like that, the care and hospice, and in just those little ceremonies and things, they can have such a huge impact on, especially an older veteran. So I love hearing those types of services and things like that. It's just wonderful. But we've already come down to the end there, Keith. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I actually lost track of time. Right, it's like 2 minutes ago. I looked up. I was like, "Oh my God, no! This episode's for you. I mean, it's all about you and the organization." So, but we are at time, so we gotta get this wrapped up, unfortunately. So, 2 questions. I'm not sure which direction. I had 2 different questions in my head. And I wasn't sure which way to pivot. So I'm gonna go on a limb and see if I can kind of put you on the spot. But you said something earlier. Some veterans just want to be left alone. I would presume that's most veterans, especially towards end of life. So in the lightheartedness, dark humor of the military community that we are. So again, there's 2 questions here, but one, what is the most entertaining, humorous story you might have about a service member who's just being ornery, and I'm basically picturing my dad, that sort of thing, if you do have one. And then secondly, how do people get in touch with you? How do people get in touch with the organization, either to support or benefit from its services?
So I don't really have a story as of yet because I've only been with them since May. But I will tell you that one of the challenges that we face as, community support services, clinical or non-clinical, is trying to have that difficult conversation and keep it lighthearted. So we find talents. Carlos, my counterpart, he plays the guitar. He can sing, he can play. I can't do any of that. You don't want me to even try to start singing. But he'll bring his guitar to events, and it's just lighthearted. You get the guitar going, people want to talk, they laugh, and then you can kind of sort of move into that kind of conversation. And then as far as if they want more information on Empath Health, just Empath Health, they can just look it up. And there's a 1-800 number on there. That is you get a warm body. You get someone that answers the phone, and whether you're calling for yourself or you're a caregiver and calling for your the person you're providing care for, they will point you in the right direction. So I hope I kind of answered that. I don't have any fun stories yet. I haven't been with them long enough.
That's okay. Yeah, I should have gone with the other question because it didn't require you to have. Yeah,
no, it's okay.
Totally spaced out that you've only been with the organization a few months. My bad on that one. Bad hosting.
No, it's
bad,
okay.
Bad host. All right. So, all right. Well, we do have to close this out. So, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on and telling everybody about Empath Health. And appreciate all that y'all are doing for the military community and at large. Please check them out if you're in the Florida area, especially, and you're able to volunteer, support them in any way. Please do so. And as always, on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. VET S.O.S is growing and spreading its wings. You can follow us on all those social media platforms. Make sure you check us out, all 4 of our shows now, and follow and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts from. We're on YouTube, Reach Across America, radio, the Parade Deck, basically you name it, we're on it. And as always, folks, remember, don't drown in the sea of trans transition, grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.